back at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, and it's my pleasure to be joined by the voice of the Missouri Tigers, Mr. Mike Kelly. It was a pleasure and a surprise coming in here and seeing you sit right next to me. This was great.
Normally I try to avoid you.
I know. Hey, to give everybody kind of a brief history, when I first started with Learfield, actually I wasn't even working for Learfield. I was helping them out. I was your board op back at the headquarters in Jefferson City, and our first football game was a road game at Baylor. And Keith Sampson, the executive producer, was trying to show me how to run the board, and they messed up on their timing, and we were in a commercial break as they were getting ready to kick off. And your first words to me were, "You got to bring it back to me, Learfield. You got to bring it back to me, Learfield." I was panicked. I was sweating.
Well, I might have said that a few times over the years. And the other interesting thing about our long-term friendship is that when I first met you back in the day, this wasn't gray right here.
And well, I know
it's changed just a little bit. Yeah,
I'm getting older. So, hey, do you believe that for the second year in a row we're back at the Georgia Dome?
Well, I think it speaks volumes to the program, and I mean that in terms of the Missouri football program. It speaks volumes for Gary Pinkel's leadership. It speaks volumes for his coaching staff, but it also, I think, speaks volumes in terms of the internal drive of each and every one of the players that are in the program. What happened after the Georgia game could have created a downward spiral for this team. And it could have brought in all of the naysayers again saying, it's back to the same old Missouri. But there was a group of guys in that locker room and a group of coaches who were bound and determined that was not going to happen. And so because of their work, because of their efforts, and because of their competitive nature, here we are. And it just, again, I think it just speaks volumes for the program itself and the stability of that program.
I want to talk about head coach Gary Pinkel, because here's a guy that I think is unfairly criticized. This is the fourth championship game, conference championship game since 2007. And the knock against Pinkel is you can't win the big game. But if you're a glass half full type of fan, you got to look at this and say, this is a difficult task to do. First of all, to get to this game, but then to win, because you've got another team that's number one. Last year, the team that beat them in the championship game played for the national championship. In 2008, Oklahoma played for the national championship. I mean, you're going up against top caliber teams. This isn't like they're going up against opponents that kind of backed into their division.
Well, I think there are two ways to answer that. And the first one would be, yeah, you're very right. Being here is very special. And again, it tells you that there's substance to the makeup of the program. But I know my friend Gary well enough to know that he's thinking about the fact that there's a missing hole in his resume. And that is, despite everything he's done at Missouri, and despite the fact that he's the all-time winningest coach at Missouri, the one thing that is missing is that he hasn't been able to win a conference championship. Well, no other coach has been able to win a conference championship at Missouri since 1969. So it just goes to show you that winning's hard, number one. But he'd tell you, I'm quite sure, that that's one thing that he desperately wants to get accomplished before he decides that he's done at Mizzou.
One of the things that I picked up from the players this week in talking with them is that when they came here, they were maybe a little bit in awe and maybe just overwhelmed by this whole situation. I mean, because think about it. As much as you set yourself for a goal to get to this game and get to this point, here you are in year 2 of the SEC, and you're here. And the players kind of walked out onto the field, like Evan Boehm said, I was a little in awe. But talking to the players this week, they said, you know what? We're not worried about trying to gain respect. We're not going to be in awe. We're coming here now to try to win a football game. Not try, win a football game. A different attitude.
Yeah, and I think Matty said it best. He said last year we went down there trying to earn respect. This year we're trying to, to win a title. And anytime that you're in an environment, I think all of us, whether it's traveling or going to a different place or a different location, the more you've been there, the more comfortable you are. It's human nature. Having been in this environment a year ago, knowing all the different responsibilities, knowing the timing of things, because it's a different travel day for the team, because normally they just leave, they'd go to the hotel and they'd be there and they'd go play the game. Well, they've got to come here, they've got to do a practice. They never practice on Fridays. They have to then have, coach has got to do a little bit of a media session. He's got a luncheon, then he's got a dinner. I saw him last year. We were doing a show live, on Friday night before the game, and he joined us live, and I guarantee it, by 8 o'clock Friday night last year, he was wiped out. So it takes a toll on everybody, and the fact that you know what to expect, I think, can only help you in this situation. And I know this about Missouri. They're not going to be the most talented team on the field. They're just not. I mean, if you go man for man and look at Alabama's player by player, Missouri's not going to be the most talented team, but they're going to compete. I know they'll compete, and we'll see if that's good enough to win.
All right, one final question for Mike Kelly before we let him go. What do you think of the college football playoff rankings and the fact that here's Missouri playing in a conference championship, and they're behind Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Michigan State, just to name a few, UCLA, and those teams are out of it, and some of those with more losses. And here's Mizzou at 16.
I say Indiana. You can't lose to Indiana. You just cannot lose to Indiana and think that you should be in the college football playoff. Even a win against Alabama, and you can make the argument that they use in the NCAA tournament, the fact that, hey, the teams that get hot at the end of the year are the ones that get respect, and Missouri's certainly getting respect, and that helps, propel you from a seeding standpoint and things like that. But that loss against Indiana puts you so far behind the 8 ball in terms of just the sheer numbers and the rankings, and they've played a strength of schedule, very respectable numbers. A win over Alabama would go well, would do a lot, but then you need a lot of help, and you almost need like the perfect storm where Ohio State would get beat, Florida State would get beat, something would happen, some miraculous way Iowa State would find a way to beat TCU, some way Baylor would lose its final. There's so many things that it would have to. I just don't see under any scenario that even with a win that Missouri would get in.
Well, there's no doubt that the Tigers are focused just on taking care of this game and let the chips fall where they may. Mike Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
See you, Bill. Thank you.
And we're going to get him hooked up on these and have him more throughout basketball and football. Thanks for watching us here at MissouriNet.com.